The early 20th century was a period of rapid technological advancement, particularly in the field of aviation. The Wright brothers' successful flight in 1903 had ignited a global interest in powered flight, and nations around the world began to explore the potential of aircraft for both civilian and military purposes. While fixed-wing aircraft were gaining attention, airships, also known as dirigibles, were seen as a promising alternative for certain applications, particularly for military reconnaissance and surveillance. Airships, which are lighter than air, craft-powered by engines and capable of controlled flight, had been in development since the late 19th century. The German Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin was a key figure in advancing airship technology, and his rigid airships, known as Zeppelins, became synonymous with the era. However, other nations, including Britain, were also investing in airship development, recognizing their potential for long-range reconnaissance and their ability to remain aloft for extended periods. The British Army, in particular, saw airships as a valuable asset for military operations. Unlike fixed-wing aircraft, which were still relatively fragile and limited in range, airships could carry heavier payloads, stay airborne for hours, and provide a stable platform for observation. This made them ideal for tasks such as coastal patrol, artillery spotting, and monitoring enemy movements. The British Army's interest in airships led to the development of several experimental models, including the Beta series. The Beta series, a step forward in British airship design. The Beta series of airships represented a significant step forward. In British airship design, the Beta I, the first in the series, was constructed in 1910 and demonstrated the potential of non-rigid airships for military use. Non-rigid airships, also known as blimps, rely on the pressure of the lifting gas, usually hydrogen or helium, to maintain their shape, unlike rigid airships, which have a fixed internal framework. The Beta II, which followed in 1912, was an improved version of its predecessor. It featured a more streamlined design, enhanced engine performance, and greater maneuverability. The airship was powered by a single engine that drove two propellers, allowing it to achieve a top speed of around 35 miles per hour. With a length of approximately 150 feet and a gas capacity of 70,000 cubic feet, the Beta II was capable of carrying a crew of 3 and a modest payload. The British Army viewed the Beta II as a versatile platform for a variety of missions, including reconnaissance, communication, and training. Its ability to hover and maneuver at low speeds made it particularly well-suited for observing ground movements and relaying information to ground forces. However, despite its advancements, the Beta II, like all airships of the time, was vulnerable to the unpredictable forces of nature, particularly strong winds. On September 14, 1912, the Beta II embarked on what would become its final flight. The airship, under the command of Captain Edward Maitland, a seasoned aviator and pioneer in British military aviation, took off from Farnborough, the home of the Royal Flying Corps, RFC. The mission was routine, intended to test the airship's performance and conduct reconnaissance exercises. The crew consisted of 3 men: Captain Maitland, Lieutenant William Park, and air mechanic Richard Gregory. The flight began uneventfully, with the Beta II performing well in the calm morning air. However, as the day progressed, weather conditions began to deteriorate. Strong winds, a common challenge for early airships, started to buffet the craft. Airships, with their large surface area and relatively low power, were particularly susceptible to wind shear and turbulence. The Beta II, despite its improvements, was no exception. As the winds intensified, the crew struggled to maintain control of the airship. The Beta II's engine, though reliable under normal conditions, was no match for the powerful gusts that now threatened to overwhelm the craft. Captain Maitland, an experienced pilot, attempted to navigate the airship to safety, but the combination of wind and mechanical limitations made the task increasingly difficult. The situation quickly became dire. The Beta II, caught in a particularly strong gust, was driven downward toward the ground. The crew, realizing that a crash was imminent, braced for impact. The airship struck the ground with considerable force, collapsing under the strain. The impact was catastrophic, resulting in the deaths of Lieutenant William Park and air mechanic Richard Gregory. Captain Maitland, though severely injured, survived the crash. The loss of the Beta II and its crew sent shockwaves through the British military aviation community. The incident was a stark reminder of the dangers inherent in early aviation, particularly for airships, which were often at the mercy of the elements. The crash also raised questions about the viability of airships for military use, especially in light of the rapid advancements being made in fixed-wing aircraft. An investigation into the crash revealed that the primary cause was the strong winds, which had overwhelmed the airship's ability to maintain stability. The Beta II's design, while innovative, had inherent limitations that made it vulnerable to such conditions. The tragedy prompted a re-evaluation of airship design and operational protocols, leading to improvements in subsequent models. The crash of the Beta II had a lasting impact on the development of British military aviation. While airships continued to be used for certain roles, particularly in naval reconnaissance, the incident highlighted the need for greater emphasis on fixed-wing aircraft, which were becoming increasingly reliable and versatile. The Royal Flying Corps, which had been established just a year earlier in 1911, began to shift its focus toward airplanes, recognizing their potential for a wider range of missions. The Beta II crash also underscored the importance of weather forecasting and risk assessment in aviation operations. Early aviators often flew in conditions that would be considered unacceptable by modern standards, and the tragedy served as a wake-up call for the need to prioritize safety. In the years that followed, advancements in meteorology and aeronautical engineering would help to mitigate some of the risks associated with flying, though the inherent dangers of aviation would never be fully eliminated. The two crew members who lost their lives in the crash, Lieutenant William Park and air mechanic Richard Gregory, were remembered as pioneers who had made the ultimate sacrifice in the pursuit of progress. Their deaths were a somber reminder of the courage and dedication required to push the boundaries of human achievement. Captain Edward Maitland, who survived the crash, went on to continue his career in aviation, contributing to the development of parachute technology and other innovations that would save countless lives in the future. The Beta II crash was not an isolated incident, but rather part of a broader pattern of accidents that characterized the early years of aviation. The period between 1900 and 1914, often referred to as the pioneer era of aviation, was marked by a high rate of accidents and fatalities. The technology of the time was rudimentary, and many of the principles of aerodynamics and structural engineering were still poorly understood. Airships in particular were prone to accidents due to their reliance on flammable gases such as hydrogen for lift. Fires and explosions were common, and the lack of effective safety measures meant that even minor incidents could have catastrophic consequences. The Beta II crash, while not caused by a fire, highlighted the vulnerability of airships to environmental factors, further underscoring the risks associated with their use. Fixed-wing aircraft were not immune to accidents either. Early airplanes were often underpowered, unstable, and difficult to control. Pilots had to rely on instinct and trial and error to master the art of flying, and many paid the ultimate price for their efforts. The high rate of accidents during this period was a testament to the courage and determination of those who sought to conquer the skies, but it also served as a reminder of the need for continued innovation and improvement. Despite the challenges and risks, airship technology continued to evolve in the years following the Beta II crash. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 spurred further development, as nations sought to exploit the unique capabilities of airships for military purposes. Germany, in particular, made significant advancements in rigid airship design, using Zeppelins for long-range bombing raids and reconnaissance missions. Britain, too, continued to invest in airship technology, though on a smaller scale. The Royal Navy, in particular, saw potential in airships for anti-submarine warfare and convoy protection. The coastal-class airships, introduced during the war, were used to patrol the waters around the British Isles, helping to detect and deter German U-boats. These airships were larger and more robust than the Beta II, incorporating lessons learned from earlier designs. However, the limitations of airships became increasingly apparent as the war progressed. Their vulnerability to enemy fire, susceptibility to weather, and high operational costs led to a gradual decline in their use. By the end of the war, fixed-wing aircraft had largely supplanted airships in most military roles, though airships continued to be used for certain specialized tasks, such as long-range exploration and scientific research. The interwar period saw a brief resurgence of interest in airships, particularly for civilian purposes. The development of helium, a non-flammable lifting gas, offered the promise of safer airship operations, and several nations, including the United States and Germany, invested in large passenger airships. The most famous of these was the German Zeppelin LZ-127 Graf Zeppelin, which completed numerous transatlantic flights and became a symbol of luxury and innovation. However, the era of the airship was ultimately short-lived. A series of high-profile accidents, including the crash of the British R-101 in 1930 and the destruction of the German Hindenburg in 1937, dealt a fatal blow to public confidence in airships. The rapid advancement of fixed-wing aircraft, which offered greater speed, reliability and safety, further marginalized airships, relegating them to a niche role in aviation history. The crash of the British Army airship Beta II in September 1912 was a tragic but instructive event in the history of aviation. It highlighted the dangers and challenges of early airship operations, particularly in adverse weather conditions, and underscored the need for continued innovation and improvement in aviation technology. While the Beta II crash was a setback, it also served as a catalyst for change, prompting advancements in airship design and operational practices that would benefit future generations of aviators. The legacy of the Beta II and its crew lives on as a testament to the courage and determination of those who dared to push the boundaries of human achievement. Their sacrifice was not in vain, as it contributed to the broader evolution of aviation and the eventual realization of safe and reliable air travel. Today, as we look back on the early days of aviation, we are reminded of the risks and challenges faced by those who came before us, and we honor their memory by continuing to strive for progress and innovation in the field of aviation.